When I saw my wife's silver Mercedes parked in my son-in-law's office building at 9 p.m. on a Tuesday, every instinct told me something was catastrophically wrong. I didn't knock. I didn't announce myself. I just pressed record on my phone and stood outside that conference room door, listening to my wife and son-in-law plan my destruction with the cold precision of assassins. What I heard in the next 47 minutes would end 2 marriages, destroy a legal career, and teach them both that the quiet man they'd underestimated was the most dangerous opponent they'd ever faced. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening in the comments. The Phillips Towers downtown never looked particularly impressive during the day, just another glass and steel monument to corporate ambition in downtown Phoenix. But at 9:17 p.m. on a Tuesday in late March, with most offices dark and the parking garage nearly empty, it felt different, menacing somehow. My daughter Emily's text had been innocent enough. "Dad, can you swing by the house tomorrow? Need your help with the garage door opener." Marcus is working late at the office again. Marcus Sterling, my son-in-law of 3 years, senior partner at Sterling & Associates, one of Phoenix's most aggressive family law firms, the man who'd courted my daughter with flowers and poetry, who'd called me sir with perfect respect, who'd asked my permission before proposing, the man whose office building I was now approaching because my wife Victoria's car was parked in the executive lot where it had absolutely no reason to be. I'd been driving home from a site inspection in Tempe. My commercial real estate development company had 3 projects running simultaneously when I'd taken the shortcut past Phillips Towers. Pure chance, pure luck, or maybe God's way of saying it was time I stopped being blind. Victoria's Mercedes ML 350, silver with the vanity plate Vic Sulfuri that I'd given her for our 28th anniversary, gleamed under the parking lot lights. I knew that car like I knew my own reflection. The small dent in the rear bumper from backing into our mailbox, the tinted windows she'd insisted on because Arizona sun was aging her. My hands tightened on the steering wheel of my Audi. Victoria had said she was having dinner with her book club tonight. Michelle and Sandra and that whole crew of country club wives who spent their afternoons playing tennis and their evenings discussing novels they'd never actually read. But her book club met at the Scottsdale Resort, not downtown Phoenix, and certainly not at my son-in-law's law office at 9 p.m. on a Tuesday. I pulled into a visitor spot 3 spaces away and killed the engine. For a moment I just sat there, my businessman's mind running through logical explanations. Maybe Marcus was handling some legal matter for Victoria. Maybe there was a family issue she hadn't mentioned. Maybe, but 28 years of marriage had taught me to recognize when my gut was telling me the truth, and my gut was screaming that something was very, very wrong. I grabbed my phone and walked toward the building entrance. The security guard, a young guy, maybe 25, barely looked up from his phone as I flashed my wallet. "Visiting Sterling & Associates," I said with the confidence of a man who belonged. "My son-in-law's expecting me." He waved me through without checking his visitor log. Amateur hour. The elevator ride to the 14th floor felt like descending into cold water. Each floor that passed brought a new wave of dread settling in my chest. My reflection in the mirrored walls showed a man who looked older than his 60 years gray hair, thinning at the temples, lines around my eyes from 3 decades of Arizona sun, the slightly stooped posture of someone who'd spent 40 years hunched over architectural plans. But my reflection also showed something else, the set jaw of a man who'd built a $40 million real estate empire from a single rental duplex, the cold eyes of someone who'd survived the 2008 crash by being smarter, faster, and more ruthless than his competitors. If something was wrong, I'd handle it. I always did. The 14th floor was dark except for the warm glow spilling from the conference room at the end of the hall. Sterling & Associates' glass-walled offices looked expensive even in the dim light. Italian leather furniture, original art on the walls, the kind of understated wealth that whispered rather than shouted. Marcus had done well for himself, and I'd helped him get there, hadn't. The business loan when he was starting his practice. the connections to wealthy clients who needed legal representation, the introductions to the commercial development community, where disputes always needed skilled attorney. I moved down the hallway in silence, my leather shoes muffled by expensive carpet. Through the glass walls, I could see them clearly. Victoria and Marcus sitting across from each other at the conference table, papers spread between them like they were conducting business. Except business meetings didn't usually involve Victoria laughing with her head thrown back, one hand on Marcus's arm. Business meetings didn't usually feature Marcus pouring wine into crystal glasses at 9:30 p.m. I stopped just outside the conference room door, which stood slightly ajar. My hand went to my phone automatically, muscle memory from years of documenting site conditions and contractor disputes. I pulled up the voice recording app and pressed the red button, and then I heard my wife's voice, clear as crystal through the crack in the door. "Brilliant, Marcus, absolutely brilliant. When did you come up with the offshore account strategy?" "About 6 months ago." Marcus's voice carried the satisfaction of a man admiring his own cleverness. "Right after Emily mentioned your husband's new development deal in Scottsdale, I started researching Arizona's community property laws, looking for vulnerabilities. My blood went cold. I pressed myself against the wall beside the door, phone held steady, recording every word. "And you're absolutely certain this will work?" Victoria's voice had taken on an edge I'd never heard before, sharp, calculating. Nothing like the woman who kissed me goodbye every morning. "Victoria, I've handled 73 divorce cases in the past 5 years. I know every loophole, every statutory weakness, every way to maximize your settlement while minimizing his ability to hide assets." Papers rustled as Marcus apparently consulted documents. "Arizona community property law is beautifully simple. Anything acquired during marriage gets split, but there are ways to tilt that split in your favor. Walk me through it again. I want to understand every detail." Marcus's chair creaked as he presumably leaned back. I could picture him perfectly. Designer suit, carefully groomed beard, that smug expression he wore when he thought he was the smartest person in the room. "First, we establish a pattern of his business negligence. You start documenting every late night at the office, every missed dinner, every time he prioritizes work over family. That builds our narrative of emotional abandonment." "Thomas works constantly," Victoria said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. "That part will be easy. The man thinks his developments are more important than his marriage." "Thomas," my name, spoken with such casual contempt by the woman I'd spent 28 years loving. "Second," Marcus continued, "we maximize the valuation of Sanderson property. Your husband's business is worth significantly more than he probably realizes. Commercial real estate portfolios, land holdings, partnership stakes in current developments. I'm estimating $40 million, possibly more. 43 million, actually. But who was counting? Once we have that valuation, we push for community property division. You're entitled to half of everything acquired during marriage. But here's where it gets interesting." Marcus's voice took on a professorial tone. "Your husband has been clever about mixing business and personal finance. That's usually a mistake in divorce proceedings, but we can use it to our advantage." "How?" "By arguing that his personal assets are so intermingled with business assets that the entire portfolio should be considered community property. His personal real estate holdings, community property, his investment accounts, community property, even the partnerships and LLC interests. We'll argue community property rights." Victoria laughed, that tinkling sound I'd once found charming. "You're evil, Marcus. I love it. I'm thorough." There's a pause, then his voice dropped lower, more intimate. "Besides, you deserve this after 28 years of putting up with Thomas's workaholic obsession. How many anniversaries has he missed because of some construction deadline?" 14, Victoria said immediately. "I've kept count. 14. The number hit me like a physical blow. She'd been keeping score this whole time. "Perfect. We'll use that in court. paint him as a husband who prioritized profit over partnership. The judges in family court are surprisingly sympathetic to neglected wives, especially when those wives have maintained the household while their husbands built empires. What about Emily? Victoria's voice carried actual concern for the first time. She adores her father. This is going to devastate her. Emily's an adult. She'll understand that marriages end, and that her mother deserves to be happy. Marcus paused. Besides, once the divorce is finalized and you're receiving $20 million in settlement plus spousal support, she'll see you made the right choice. $20 million, half my life's work, just handed over to a woman who'd been planning my destruction while I worked 70-hour weeks to provide the lifestyle she demanded. And us? Victoria's voice had gone soft, flirtatious. When can we finally stop hiding? The pause that followed felt endless. 6 months after your divorce is finalized, Marcus said finally. Maybe a year, long enough that it doesn't look suspicious. We'll say we grew close during the proceedings, that I provided emotional support during your difficult time. A year is a long time to wait, Marcus. Victoria, his voice carried gentle chiding. We've been patient for 18 months already. What's another year when we'll have the rest of our lives together? 18 months, a year and a half. While I'd been closing deals and managing projects and coming home exhausted, my wife had been conducting an affair with my son-in-law. You're right, Victoria conceded. It's just hard going home every night to him, pretending I still care, performing the role of loving wife when all I feel is resentment. I know, sweetheart, but that performance is crucial. If Thomas suspects anything before we file, he'll have time to hide assets. We need him completely blindsided. One day he's working on his Scottsdale development, the next day he's being served with divorce papers. And you're certain he won't see it coming? Marcus laughed. Actually laughed. Thomas Sanderson is brilliant at reading construction plans and market trends, but reading people? The man is clueless. He still thinks you're the devoted wife who organizes his dry cleaning and manages his social calendar. God, when you put it that way, I almost feel guilty. Almost? Not quite. Don't. You've earned this, Victoria. 28 years of marriage to a man who sees you as a household manager rather than a partner. You deserve better. You deserve someone who appreciates you. Someone like you, exactly like me. The sound that followed made my stomach turn. Not words, something worse. The unmistakable sound of a kiss. I should have burst through that door. Should have confronted them right then with righteous fury and devastating accusations. But some instinct, maybe the same business instinct that had helped me survive decades of cutthroat development deals, kept me frozen in place. Evidence. I needed evidence. So I stood there in that darkened hallway for another 23 minutes, my phone recording every word as Victoria and Marcus continued their planning session. They discussed timeline strategies, file for divorce in June, when my attention would be focused on the Scottsdale project launch. They reviewed documentation. Victoria had apparently been copying my financial records for months, building a comprehensive picture of assets Marcus could target in court. They even discussed their future together, the house they'd buy in Sedona once the divorce was finalized, the trips to Europe they'd take with my money, the life they'd build on the ruins of my marriage. I should get going, Victoria said finally. Thomas will be home from Tempe by now. He'll wonder where I am. Tell him book club ran late. You always do. How many Tuesday nights had she been here instead of at the Scottsdale resort? Marcus. Victoria's voice went serious. You're absolutely certain about this, about us, because once we start this, there's no going back. I've never been more certain of anything in my life. Thomas Sanderson is about to learn what happens when you take your wife for granted. They stood, more sounds of movement. Another kiss, promises to call tomorrow. I moved quickly down the hallway, slipping into an alcove near the elevator. From there, I watched them emerge from the conference room together. Marcus had his hand on Victoria's lower back, possessive, intimate. She was laughing at something he'd said, her face transformed by happiness. I couldn't remember seeing at home in years. They kissed one more time at the elevator, oblivious to the cameras in the ceiling, unconcerned about being seen because who would be watching at 10 p.m. on a Tuesday? If this story reminded you of the injustices you've seen, follow the channel and turn on notifications, because wherever justice is delayed, a new revenge story begins. I waited until Victoria's elevator descended before stepping out of the alcove. Marcus was walking back toward his office, whistling softly, a man without a care in the world. Marcus, he spun around, shock registering on his face like I'd materialized out of thin air. Thomas, Jesus, you scared me. What are you doing here? I could ask you the same question. I kept my voice level, friendly, even. Working late, client meeting ran long. You know how it is. His recovery was impressive. The lawyer's instinct to lie smoothly under pressure. What brings you downtown? Site inspection in Tempe. Thought I'd swing by and see if you wanted to grab a drink. I gestured vaguely toward the elevator. But looks like you're wrapping up for the night. Yeah, just finished. Rain check? Sure, rain check. I turned to leave, then paused as if remembering something. Oh, have you talked to Emily lately? She mentioned you've been working a lot of late nights. Something flickered in his eyes. Guilt? Fear? This time of year is always busy. Tax season brings out all the couples who've been thinking about divorce. I bet, I smiled. Well, don't work too hard. Emily misses you. I'll try to get home earlier tomorrow. We exchanged goodbyes like nothing was wrong. Like I hadn't just spent 47 minutes recording him planning my destruction with my own wife. Like we were still family. I was in my car and 3 blocks away before the shaking started. My hands trembled so violently I had to pull over, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. 28 years of marriage reduced to a legal strategy session in a conference room. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and checked the recording. All 47 minutes, crystal clear. Victoria's voice, Marcus's voice. Every damning word of their conspiracy preserved in digital format. They thought they were playing chess with someone who didn't know the rules. They thought Thomas Sanderson was a workaholic fool too busy making money to notice his wife was planning his destruction. They were about to discover their mistake. I sat in my car on that darkened Phoenix street and felt something cold and analytical settle over the grief. The shock was wearing off, replaced by the same strategic mindset that had built Sanderson Properties into a $43 million empire. Victoria wanted to play this game. Marcus wanted to use his legal expertise to steal half my life's work. Fine, let's play. But they were about to learn that the quiet man they'd underestimated had spent 40 years winning battles they didn't even know existed. And this battle, this one was personal. I started the car and drove toward my attorney's house, the recording secured on my phone, my marriage shattered but my mind already building the strategy that would destroy them both. The war had begun, they just didn't know it yet. James Hutchinson lived in a gated community in Paradise Valley, the kind of neighborhood where success whispered through perfectly manicured lawns and Spanish colonial architecture. I'd been to his house exactly 3 times in the 15 years he'd handled my business legal affairs, twice for holiday parties and once when I'd needed emergency contract review on a Sunday morning. This was emergency number 2. My text had been deliberately vague. James, need urgent consult. Can I come by tonight? Legal crisis. His response came within 30 seconds. Gate code 4782. Come around back. I'll be in my office. James's home office was a converted casita separate from the main house, a man cave disguised as professional works. When I arrived at 11:15 p.m., he was waiting with coffee already brewing, and the kind of serious expression that told me he'd guessed this wasn't about real estate contracts. Thomas, he waved me into a leather chair across from his massive mahogany desk. You look like hell. What happened? I pulled out my phone and placed it on the desk between us. Before I play this, I need to know something. What I'm about to show you, does attorney-client privilege cover it? James's expression sharpened. 20 years as a corporate attorney had given him instincts for serious trouble. If you're consulting me for legal advice, yes, everything said in this room is privileged. He paused. Should I be recording this conversation for documentation? Yes. He pulled out a digital recorder and set it on the desk. James Hutchinson, March 19, 11:18 p.m. Emergency consultation with Thomas Sanderson. Thomas, please state for the record that you're retaining me for legal representation. I am retaining James Hutchinson as my legal counsel for matters related to my marriage and business interests. Good. Now tell me what happened. I pressed play. For the next 47 minutes, James sat motionless as Victoria's and Marcus's voices filled his office. I watched his face carefully, the initial confusion, the growing shock, the cold professional anger that settled over his features as the conspiracy scope became clear. When the recording ended, silence filled the room like a physical presence. Jesus Christ, James said finally. Your son-in-law is planning to financially destroy you using information your wife has been stealing for months. 18 months, apparently. James stood and paced to his window, hands clasped behind his back. I'd seen him in this mode before, the brilliant legal mind processing information, building strategies, calculating angles. Let me ask you something, Thomas. What do you want the outcome to be here? The question surprised me. What do you mean? I mean, do you want to save your marriage? Reconcile with Victoria? Work through whatever led to this? He turned back to face me. Or do you want to win? I thought about Victoria's laugh, Marcus's smug satisfaction, the casual contempt in their voices when they discussed me. I want to win. James smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. Good, because what I'm about to propose is legally devastating and personally ruthless. He pulled out a yellow legal pad and began writing. First, we need to understand what they've done wrong legally. Marcus Sterling is your son-in-law, correct? Married to your daughter Emily for 3 years, which means he has a massive conflict of interest. He's planning to represent your wife in a divorce proceeding while married to your daughter. That's an ethical violation so egregious it could get him disbarred. James made notes rapidly. Second, he's been providing legal advice to Victoria without any formal attorney-client relationship, using confidential information about your finances that he likely obtained through family connections. What does that mean practically? It means that every strategy they've discussed, every asset they've identified, every tactic they're planning, all of it is potentially fruit of the poisonous tree, obtained through unethical means, which means it's vulnerable to attack in court. James continued writing. Third, Victoria has been conducting financial reconnaissance, copying your documents, analyzing your assets without your knowledge or consent. In Arizona, that's potentially criminal. Theft of financial documents, invasion of privacy. At minimum, it destroys any claim she might have to being a victim of financial abuse. He looked up from his notes. The recording you have is legal, by the way. Arizona is a one-party consent state for record. You were present during the conversation, which means you had every right to record it. Relief washed over me. So we can use this in court? Better than that, we can use it to destroy them before we ever reach court. James's smile turned predatory. Here's what we're going to do. James's strategy unfolded on his yellow legal pad like a military campaign, each phase designed to systematically dismantle Victoria and Marcus's conspiracy before they even realized they were under attack. Phase 1, James said, underlining the words heavily. Asset protection. We need to move fast before Victoria realizes you know about the affair. How much cash can you access immediately? $2 million in liquid accounts, another $5 million in securities I can liquidate within 48 hours. Good. Tomorrow morning you're opening new accounts at a different bank. Transfer everything, and I mean everything. Checking, savings, investment accounts. Leave exactly $500 in the joint account. Won't that trigger suspicion? Absolutely. But by the time Victoria notices, we'll already be 3 steps ahead. James made more notes. Phase 2, Business Asset Protection. Sanderson Properties is structured as an LLC, correct? Correct. With my business partner, David. Perfect. We're going to execute an emergency restructuring. You and David will create a new holding company, transfer all operating assets, then dissolve the old LLC, completely legal, fully documented, and utterly devastating to Marcus's asset targeting strategy. I leaned forward, beginning to understand the scope of James's plan. Because all the assets Victoria documented no longer exist in the entity she researched. Exactly. When Marcus files his discovery request for Sanderson Properties LLC, he'll find an empty shell. The real assets will be safely hidden in the new structure. Phase 3? I asked. James's smile turned cold. Phase 3 is where we get creative. Marcus Sterling has committed multiple ethical violations. We're going to file a formal complaint with the State Bar of Arizona, but we're not doing it ourselves. Who's filing it? Emily. The name hung in the air like a grenade. My daughter, Marcus's wife. James, I can't ask Emily to. You're not asking. I am. He pulled out his phone. What's Emily's number? It's nearly midnight. And her husband is committing career-ending ethical violations while planning to help your wife steal your fortune. I think she'd want to know. I recited Emily's number with trembling hands. James dialed, putting the call on speaker. It rang 4 times before Emily's sleepy voice answered. Hello? Emily, this is James Hutchinson. I'm your father's attorney. I need you to come to my office immediately. It's about Marcus. Silence. Then more alert. What about Marcus? I'd rather discuss this in person. Can you be here in 30 minutes? Mr. Hutchinson, it's midnight. Can't this wait until... No, Emily, it can't wait. Please trust me. Your father is here, and what we need to discuss affects your entire family. Another pause. I could hear rustling in the background. I'll be there in 25 minutes. Emily arrived in sweats and a ponytail, her face creased with sleep and worry. The moment she saw me sitting in James's office, her expression shifted from confusion to fear. Dad, what's going on? Are you okay? Sit down, sweetheart. My voice cracked on the last word. James gestured to the chair beside me. Emily, what I'm about to play for you is going to be difficult to hear, but you need to know the truth about your husband and your mother. My mother? Mom's at book club tonight. She stopped, reading our expressions. Isn't she? I pressed play. Watching my daughter's face as she listened to the recording was harder than anything I'd experienced in that conference room hallway. Her expression cycled through confusion, disbelief, anger, and finally a cold fury I'd never seen before. When Marcus's voice said Thomas is clueless, he still thinks Victoria's the devoted wife. Emily's hands clenched into fists. When Victoria laughed about keeping score of missed anniversaries, Emily's jaw tightened. When they discussed their 18-month affair, my daughter closed her eyes like she was physically wounded. The recording ended. Silence filled the office like a held breath. That son of a bitch, Emily whispered. That goddamn son of a bitch. Emily, I started. No. She stood abruptly, pacing. He's been working late for 18 months. 18 months of client meetings and case preparations, and I believed every word. She turned to James. You said this affects my family. What exactly are we dealing with legally? James explained Marcus's ethical violations with clinical precision. The conflict of interest, the unauthorized legal advice, the theft of confidential information through family connections. And you want me to file the bar complaint? Emily said flatly. Yeah. Why me? What would you do at this point? Write it in the comments. Your thoughts are as important as the story itself. Because you're the wronged spouse was standing to complain about your husband's professional misconduct. Because the Bar Association takes complaints from family members seriously, it suggests the violations are severe enough to impact personal relationships. James pulled out prepared documents, and because, frankly, it will destroy him more thoroughly than anything your father or I could. Emily took the complaint form with steady hands. Where do I sign? By sunrise Thursday morning, Phase 1 was complete. $7 million had been transferred to new accounts at Arizona Community Bank under my sole signature. My financial advisor had liquidated securities and moved them to protected trusts. The joint account Victoria relied on for her daily expenses contained exactly $532. Phase 2 took 72 hours of intense legal work. David Chen, my business partner and friend of 15 years, signed off on the restructuring with barely a question once I explained the situation. By Sunday evening, Sanderson Properties LL existed only on paper. The real assets, $43 million in commercial real estate land holdings and partnership stakes, had been transferred to Sanderson Chen Holdings, a new entity Victoria had never heard of. Phase 3 launched Monday morning when Emily hand-delivered her ethics complaint to the State Bar of Arizona. The complaint was devastating in its precision, citing specific ethical violations with dates, times, and supporting evidence from the recording. But James's strategy didn't stop there. We need to control the narrative, he'd explained. Before Marcus and Victoria realize what's happening, we need to ensure that every relevant person knows the truth, which is how on Monday afternoon, I found myself sitting across from Sarah Mitchell, editor of the Phoenix Business Journal, in her downtown office. Thomas Sanderson. Sarah shook my hand warmly. I haven't seen you since the Chamber of Commerce dinner in January. What brings you by? I pulled out a prepared statement James had drafted. I'm giving you an exclusive story, Sarah, but it's not the kind of story I ever wanted to tell. For the next hour, I walked Sarah through an edited version of events, focusing on the professional misconduct angle, the ethical violations, the breach of family trust. James had been clear. Stick to facts. Avoid inflammatory language. Paint yourself as the victim of professional conspiracy, not marital betrayal. Sarah's journalistic instincts kicked in immediately. Can you provide documentation? I handed her copies of Emily's bar complaint, carefully redacted excerpts from the recording, and a timeline of events. Everything legally bulletproof, everything verifiable. This is going to be explosive, Sarah said, scanning the document. Sterling & Associates is one of Phoenix's most prominent family law firms. Marcus Sterling personally handles some of the city's highest-profile divorces. Then the public deserves to know he's been using confidential family information to plan legal attacks. Sarah looked up from the documents. When do you want this to run? How fast can you verify the facts? If everything checks out. Wednesday's business section. Perfect. Victoria noticed the empty bank accounts on Tuesday morning. I was in a meeting with contractors at the Scottsdale development site when my phone started buzzing with her calls. I let them go to voicemail. By noon, I had 14 missed calls and 23 increasingly frantic text messages. Victoria, 9:47 a.m. Why is our account empty? Victoria, 10:15 a.m. Thomas, this isn't funny. Where's the money? Victoria, 11:23 a.m. I'm at the bank. They say you transferred everything. What's going on? Victoria, 12:04 p.m. Call me immediately. I didn't call. Instead, I forwarded all her messages to James with a simple note. Documentation of financial dependency will be useful in court. Marcus's reaction was more controlled but no less desperate. Emily had moved out of their house Sunday night, taking nothing but her clothes and her grandmother's jewelry. Monday morning, she'd served him with divorce papers, citing adultery and professional misconduct. My daughter's text Monday night had been brief. He tried to explain, tried to say the recording was taken out of context. I told him to get a good lawyer because I'm taking everything. Love you, Dad. By Tuesday afternoon, Marcus understood that his carefully constructed world was collapsing His frantic call to my cell phone went straight to voicemail. "Thomas, we need to talk. Please. There's been a misunderstanding. I can explain everything." Victoria and I were just strategizing in case you and she ever had marital problems. We weren't actually. He couldn't even finish the lie. Victoria's Tuesday evening visit to my office was inevitable. My secretary buzzed me at 6:30 p.m. "Mr. Sanderson, your wife is here. She doesn't have an appointment, but she's insisting it's an emergency. Send her in." Victoria stormed into my office like a hurricane of designer clothes and expensive perfume. 28 years had kept her beautiful blonde hair expensively maintained, figure preserved through personal trainers and careful diets, the kind of polished appearance that came from unlimited money and unlimited time. But right now she looked frayed, desperate. "Thomas, what the hell is going on? Where's our money?" I gestured to the chair across from my desk. "Sit down, Victoria." "I don't want to sit down. I want to know why I can't access our accounts, why my credit cards are declined, why." She stopped, noticing my expression. I know." The color drained from her face. "Know what? Everything." I pulled out my phone and played just the first 30 seconds of the recording. Victoria's voice filled my office. "When the old fool finally signs the papers, we'll have everything we planned." Victoria sank into the chair, her expensive handbag sliding from her shoulder to the floor. "How long have you been planning this?" I asked, my voice remarkably steady. "The truth, Victoria. You owe me that much after." She stared at her hands, perfectly manicured nails suddenly fascinating. 2 years since Marcus joined Emily's family. He saw what you'd built and he made me see it differently." "See what differently?" "That I'd earned half of everything, that I'd supported your career, managed your household, played the perfect executive wife for decades while you worked 80-hour weeks." Her voice gained strength, righteous anger replacing shock. "I deserved more than being your glorified assistant, Thomas, so you decided to steal it." "Not steal, take what's legally mine." She looked up, meeting my eyes. "Arizona is a community property state. Half of everything acquired during our marriage belongs to me." Marcus was just helping me understand my rights. Marcus was helping himself to my wife and my fortune. Victoria flinched but didn't deny it. "Are you going to use the recording?" "Oh, Victoria, I've already used it." Emily filed an ethics complaint with the state bar yesterday. The Phoenix Business Journal runs their expose tomorrow, and my attorneys have restructured every asset you so carefully documented over the past 18 months. Her face went white. "What do you mean restructured?" "Subscribe and stay tuned so you don't miss any true revenge stories. Sometimes, even silence is the strongest form of revenge." "I mean Sanderson Properties LLC, the company you've been researching, no longer holds any meaningful assets. I mean the joint accounts you relied on are closed. I mean your meal ticket just got shredded." "You can't do that. Those are marital assets." "Were marital assets. Now they're business holdings in a new entity you have no claim to." I leaned forward. "See, Victoria, while you were playing legal games with Marcus, you forgot something important about your husband. I didn't build a $43 million real estate empire by being careless or stupid." She stood abruptly, her chair scraping against hardwood. "I'll fight you. I'll take you to court and I'll take half of everything, recording or no recording. Please, I'm looking forward to explaining to a judge how you spent 18 months conducting an affair with your son-in-law while stealing financial documents to plan my destruction." I smiled. "I'm sure they'll be very sympathetic to your community property claims." Victoria grabbed her purse and walked to the door. Her hand on the knob, she turned back one last time. "I really did love you once, Thomas. Before the work consumed you, before you forgot I existed except as a household convenience." "Maybe," I said quietly. "But you forgot something too, Victoria. Love doesn't justify theft, and it definitely doesn't justify conspiracy." She left without another word. The Phoenix Business Journal article hit Wednesday morning like a bomb. Front page of the business section, above the fold, prominent family law attorney under ethics investigation, alleged use of confidential family information in divorce planning. Sarah Mitchell had done her job with devastating thoroughness. The article outlined Marcus's conflict of interest, his 18-month involvement in planning a divorce for his mother-in-law, his use of information obtained through family connections to target assets in legal proceedings. It stopped just short of mentioning the affair. James's advice was to keep that private, more useful as leverage than as public scandal. But the professional misconduct angle was damaging enough. By noon Wednesday, Sterling and Associates had lost 3 major clients. By end of business, 2 junior partners had resigned rather than be associated with Marcus's ethics violations. The state bar investigation accelerated. Friday morning, Marcus's legal license was temporarily suspended pending formal hearing. Saturday, Victoria moved out of our Paradise Valley house, taking only personal items and the car in her name. No lawyers present, no dramatic confrontation, just a quiet surrender to reality. Emily came by Sunday afternoon and found me standing in my office, looking at photos on the wall. 30 years of development projects, 30 years of buildings I'd created, families I'd housed, businesses I'd supported. You okay, Dad? I built a fortune, Emily. 40 years of work, and your mother and Marcus thought they could just take it because Arizona law said they were entitled. They were wrong, were they? I turned to face my daughter. She did support my career. She did sacrifice her own ambitions. Is she wrong that she deserved more than I gave her? Emily moved to stand beside me, looking at the same photos. Maybe Mom deserved more attention, more appreciation, more partnership in the success you built together. She put her arm around me. But she didn't deserve half your fortune for planning to destroy you. There's a difference between what someone deserves and what they're willing to steal. Smart girl. I'd raised a smart girl. What's happening with Marcus? I asked. His hearing is scheduled for next month. My divorce should be final by summer. She paused. He's already moved back to California. Can't practice law in Arizona anymore. Might as well start over somewhere else. I'm sorry you're going through this. Don't be. You didn't cause this. They did. Emily squeezed my shoulder. And honestly, finding out now is better than finding out in 10 years after having his children. She was right, of course. But the victory felt hollow, standing in my office, surrounded by the trappings of success that had cost me my marriage. Victoria received $2.1 million, far less than the $20 million she'd planned for, but more than the nothing I'd wanted to give her. James had advised a settlement rather than extended litigation. Give her enough to survive comfortably, but not enough to live lavishly. He'd counseled, let her understand the difference between earned success and stolen wealth. Marcus's law license was permanently revoked in July after the full ethics hearing. Last I heard, he was working as a legal consultant in San Diego, his career as a family law attorney destroyed by his own unethical behavior. Emily was thriving. Her psychology practice was booming, partly due to her professional reputation and partly due to the publicity from her own messy divorce, giving her credibility with clients going through similar situations. I understand what betrayal feels like now, she told me over dinner one night. It makes me a better therapist. As for me, Sanderson Chin Holdings completed the Scottsdale development in October, $20 million in profit, bringing the portfolio value to $48. I sold my share to David Chen in November for $30 million cash. 40 years of building, creating, and grinding, reduced to a wire transfer and a handshake. What are you going to do with all that money? David asked at our final meeting. Something different, something that doesn't cost me my family. I bought a small charter sailing company in San Diego. 15 boats, 20 employees, and absolutely no connection to the commercial real estate world that had consumed 40 years of my life. On a Tuesday morning in December, I took my first group of tourists out on a sunset cruise, watching families laugh together, couples holding hands, kids excited about seeing dolphins. It felt like success measured in something other than dollars. My phone buzzed with a text from Emily. "Proud of you, Dad. Mom asked about you yesterday. Said you seem happier." I looked at that text for a long time before responding. Happiness isn't about winning or losing. It's about knowing who you really are. Victoria had been right about one thing. I'd been consumed by work, by building, by the endless pursuit of more. But she'd been wrong about the solution. You don't fix a broken marriage by stealing from it. You fix it by having the courage to admit it's broken and the grace to walk away with integrity. I'd lost a wife, lost a son-in-law, lost my daughter's marriage, but I'd kept my integrity, kept my business reputation, and found a different way to measure success. The recording on my phone for 7 minutes that had destroyed 2 marriages and ended a legal career. I deleted it finally in January. Didn't need it anymore. Didn't want the reminder. Some battles you win by fighting. Others you win by walking away and building something better. I'd done both. And for the first time in 40 years, I was sleeping through the night. Thank you for watching. If this story showed you a different face of justice, like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next revenge story.